Albertans, welcome to another Scott Fox After 9. Coming up on this episode, I've got a ton of different things that I think you should hear. I'm going to weigh in on a couple of different things that some listeners have asked me to weigh in on, and I'm going to let you know about some stuff that you may not have heard about yet. I'm going to try and cover a lot of ground in this episode of Scott Fox After 9, but I think this is going to be kind of like an early dismissal day. There's not a ton going on. Certainly some things that you should know, but I don't think this is going to be a longer episode like the other ones have been so far. But that's okay, because there's a lot of stuff coming. I want to start off with just taking stock of where we are right now. It is the 3rd of February as I record, and looking ahead, this Friday, the Winter Olympics begin in Italy. More than 200 athletes are going to be there representing Canada. That's great. Usually Canada does pretty well at the Winter Olympics. Time change, not even that big a deal. In Italy, we will see the opening ceremonies our time, 2 p.m. on Friday. I'm wondering if people are really in an Olympics mood, though. Typically building up to the Winter Olympics, there's a lot of hype, and frankly, I'm not even hearing much about it. I'm not sure if there's a reason for that, or if maybe Canadians are just not interested in hearing about the Olympics right now, but that may change as we get a little bit closer to the weekend. And of course, this weekend, a big one, it's Super Bowl weekend. Are you looking forward to the Super Bowl? New England versus Seattle. Me personally, I think this is a worst case scenario for the NFL. This Super Bowl is shaping up to be a real dud. And let me tell you why. You've got two teams playing that I don't think the vast majority of fans are all that interested in. And no, I don't need to hear a snarky email or DM from you Patriots fans. I never hear from Seattle fans, but you New England fans, I'll give you guys credit. You stand up for your team and you're very mouthy about it. I can't hate on it. If I were a New England fan, I would be pumped too, and congratulations to you going back to the Super Bowl. But generally speaking, I don't think this is going to be a particularly good matchup, and the halftime show has got a lot of people wondering, what is this? Bad Bunny, biggest artist in the world, arguably, is doing the Super Bowl halftime show. They just did a poll, though, and only 6 out of 10 Americans have even heard of Bad Bunny. I think this is going to be one of those Super Bowls where ratings around the world are probably stronger than they are in America itself. Now, the media event has gotten underway outside the Super Bowl. Yesterday, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell faced the press, and he was asked about the upcoming Super Bowl and specifically the halftime show with Bad Bunny. Here's what he had to say.
On your second question, I think everybody in listen, Bad Bunny is and I think that was demonstrated last night, one of the great artists in the world. And that's one of the reasons we chose him. But the other reason is he understood the platform he was on, and that this platform is used to unite people and to be able to bring people together with their creativity, with their talents, and to be able to use this moment to do that. And I think artists in the past have done that. I think Bad Bunny understands that, and I think he'll have a great performance.
Okay, Roger Goodell saying Bad Bunny was the right choice because he's a massive artist and he understands the platform, and obviously that's true. But also because the Super Bowl halftime show is about uniting people. And frankly, I'm not sure if Bad Bunny is all that uniting. I mean, he is in favor of the ICE out movement to get rid of ICE and their deportations in America. He plans to wear a dress during his performance to honor LGBTQ icons. He has mocked people in the past for not being able to understand Spanish, football fans in particular, when he was on Saturday Night Live. There's a bit of baggage here, and not the least of which is the Super Bowl halftime show is still produced by Jay-Z. And if you haven't been following along, there's a lot of strong implications coming out of this latest drop of Epstein files that implicate someone like Jay-Z. So all things equal, I don't know if this is going to be the greatest Super Bowl performance that we've ever seen. I don't know how many people are all that interested in it, but I'll be talking about it if anything interesting comes up between now and the game, and of course, next Monday. There's another piece of audio I want to play for you, and this has been circulating since last Friday. A number of people have sent it to me and asked me for my thoughts on this, and I might even let some of you down here because I'm going to call this one a nothing burger. Basically, on Friday, Prime Minister Mark Carney was at the Canadian Media Summit. And there were remarks made by the Prime Minister, and then the president of the Canadian Media Producers Association got up and he thanked the Prime Minister, and he said something that has got a lot of people talking. Listen to this.
Prime Minister, know that every person in this room and the 180,000 people who work in this industry have your back, just as we know that you have ours.
Okay, it's a little hard to hear there, and that's a clip that is, I believe it was somebody on their phone recorded it while watching it on a computer screen. Now, there was a true feed of it, but certain news outlets, and I'm led to believe that CPAC is one of them, have omitted that part from the stream that they've got on YouTube. Why would they do that? Let me play this for you just one more time, because again, a lot of people are wondering what this means and if this is an admission that the mainstream media is fully behind Mark Carney. Listen one more time.
Prime Minister, know that every person in this room and the 180,000 people who work in this industry have your back, just as we know that you have ours.
Okay, that is the president of the Canadian Media Producers Association informing the Prime Minister the media has got his back. Okay, here's the thing. I know when a lot of people hear media, they instinctively think news. The Canadian Media Producers Association isn't necessarily the news. These are people that produce content, TV shows and things like that, commercials even. That's what they do there. And apparently their industry is in lockstep with the Prime Minister because they insist the Prime Minister has got their back as well. That's not necessarily the mainstream media news. It's not like a news director came out and said, don't worry, Prime Minister, we're going to snowplow everything for you and we're going to make things great because we like you and you like us and we don't want to see Pierre Poilievre win. Some people are reading into that clip that that's what that meant, but he's not really speaking on behalf of the news per se. Somebody else would likely come out and do that, and I don't think they're going to do that in public, especially seeing how far this one has gone in a viral sense. So is it a smoking gun that the media is in the tank for the Liberals? I mean, they are. There's just no denying that. When you watch the news, there is such incredible bias that it's impossible to ignore. Is that the smoking gun, though? I'm going to respectfully suggest no, it's not. Certainly an indication of where the alliances lay in the media landscape, but that isn't necessarily an admission that the news is on the Prime Minister's side. Speaking of the news, there's something else that I want to break here. There is no shortage of news outlets that will carry water for the Prime Minister and for the governing Liberals, but not all of them. There are still certain ones out there that I like a lot. And yesterday, a story was broken by Holly Doan from Blacklock's Reports. And you should Google that. Great news source. It's paid and they are non-funded by the government. They don't accept any of the media subsidies. And I think that their coverage on a lot of issues is great. They hold Ottawa to account. Yesterday, Holly, who's also a great reporter and a real nice woman, she released a story on Blacklock's Report about Health Canada. They have now sealed the records on vaccine and adverse drug reactions, the reports, for 15 years. It won't be for 15 years, 2040, before we can go back and learn the full extent of how many vaccine injuries there have been in Canada. And that would include the period of COVID-19. Why do we have to wait 15 years? And do you think that that's particularly transparent? You know, if they insist that that vaccine was safe and effective and there's nothing to worry about, they didn't insist on that. Why would they seal the records now? Is it because there's a lot more vaccine injuries? Is it because it's far more than the mainstream media ever indicated to Canadians? Why would they need to seal this for 15 years? Personally, I don't understand that, but that is another red flag. The government that prides itself supposedly on transparency, sealing vaccine records and vaccine injury records for 15 years. They've just given themselves permission to delete text messages and emails after 30 days. I think those things should be preserved forever. They should be part of the historical record of the Canadian government. And if somebody is working for the Canadian government as an elected individual, I think that their text messages and emails, not the personal ones, but the ones related to business, I think those are fair game. The Liberals have given themselves permission to delete them after 30 days. That, again, makes it very difficult to hold this government to account, and that's something very, very frustrating. Let's play a little bit of yesterday in the House of Commons. Melissa Lantsman is the member of Parliament for Thornhill. She's also the deputy leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Pierre wasn't in the House for question period yesterday, so here is Melissa Lantsman.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
The government is back with the same recycled ideas on grocery prices. They promised a grocery rebate years ago, and food bank lines got longer. They spent years talking about affordability, and prices kept climbing. They promised action, but after all of that bluster, groceries will cost a family of four more than $1,000 extra this year compared to last. Wow. And now they're back at it again, offering the same inflationary plan, $10 a week off of a $300 grocery bill, and that's not even for everybody. So why are Canadians supposed to believe them this time?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
It might be that my colleague was more concerned about their own future, but on this side of the House, we were concerned about the future of Canadians. That's right. There's a lot to be rejoiced today, Mr. Speaker.
Just want to point out, this is par for the course with this Liberal government. If you challenge them, they will throw out an insult. That is the go-to. There's no respectful dialogue in Parliament. That is the Minister of Finance throwing out a cheap shot before he answers a perfectly reasonable question at a point in our history where, yeah, there are more people than ever lined up at food banks. This grocery rebate that they've announced is going to be a ton of inflationary spending. It's going to cost the taxpayers a ton of money. It doesn't apply to all taxpayers, and it's not that much for each individual person. How can that possibly help people that are struggling right now? First thing they do is throw out an insult. That's very, very disrespectful.
That's why I see the Conservatives so enthusiastic. It's Monday and we have good news. You know why, Mr. Speaker? Because we did the second reading of C-19, Mr. Speaker. C-19, that's why I see all the Conservatives smiling, Mr. Speaker, because they know that helping 12 million Canadians is why Canadians send us here. Mr. Speaker, we're going to build a strong Canada. We're going to build strong families because we believe in Canada.
The honourable member.
He may believe in Canada, but he certainly did not answer that question. I think a lot of people have questions about this grocery rebate, and it seems to me that the threshold is way too low. In order to get it, you have to make a really small amount of money, and there's a lot of people squarely in the middle class that don't qualify for this. And to assume that people in the middle class don't deserve a bit of a break on their grocery bill or a bit of a top up from the government is just crazy. I don't understand why the government won't address that question. But let's hear the one more question and the follow-up. And then I've got some audio from the hallway in the House of Commons that might add a little more context to this conversation.
For Thornhill.
He grasps the irony of today. In 2023, that same finance minister promised that he would, quote, bring price stability to Canadians. He summoned the grocery CEOs to Ottawa. He promised competition. He promised affordability. And then he delivered 2 more years of whatever that was. Now in Canada, we have the highest food inflation in the G7, and over 2 million people are lined up at a food bank every single month. The groundhog saw his shadow today. Will the finance minister finally see his, or will Canadians get the same Trudeau policies that we had for 10
years? The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I'm so happy to see that some Conservatives are actually reading what we're saying, Mr. Speaker, and listening. I think they should listen to Canadians because that would help them perhaps, Mr. Speaker. 12 million Canadians are going to be benefiting for our measure, Mr. Speaker. 12 million Canadians. This is not something to shout about. This is something to rejoice, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, we meet Canadians where they are. Canadian has told us, give us a boost, give us a bridge, Mr. Speaker. We're going to build a stronger economy in the G7. We're going to be there for Canadians. We're going to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
Are you rejoicing right now? Is your life in a place where you can look around and say, wow, this is great. I've got to rejoice and thank the Liberal government. I need to thank them for giving me back just a little bit of my money. Again, it's a small amount of Canadians that are going to get it. I think the people who really need it, it's been cut off way too early. They should have extended that much more because there are so many people who need help. And then the price at the grocery store, Melissa was absolutely right. It was that exact same minister when he was in charge of industry. Remember, he had that big dog and pony show? He summoned all the grocers to come to Ottawa and he wanted to know what they were going to do. And Well, nothing got done. The price just kept going up. However, that same minister, Francois-Philippe Champagne, our finance minister now, he was out doing a media scrum in the House of Commons hallway, and he got asked an interesting question. $12.4 billion is how much it's going to cost to give this little GST rebate to some Canadians. $12.5 billion. Simple question that any household would ask if they were going to make a big expenditure. How are we going to pay for that?
CBO said today that this bill is going to cost about $12 billion over 6 years, a little higher than your own estimate. And the Conservatives say you haven't explained where this money is going to come from. So is it just going to be all added to the deficit?
Well, I would say when you're in government, you have to make choices. The choice we made is to support Canadians where they are. Like I said, this legislation is giving a boost for this year, but also a bridge towards the time where we grow the economy. The Prime Minister and I have laid out a vision for this country to bring investment, to grow the economy. Actually, Canada is the second fastest growing economy in the G7. Like I laid out in Budget 2025, if you look at our infrastructure plan in housing, in defense, in productivity innovation, I was just at the G7 meeting recently. I mean, we compare very well to the world. I mean, the International Monetary Fund said countries like Canada and Germany, which have that fiscal capacity, should be there to meet the important needs of people. So whilst we're building the Canadian economy, I would say we're supporting Canadians at the time of need.
All in the deficit then?
Okay, so he didn't answer the question. I mean, not only do they not answer questions in Parliament, they won't answer questions outside of it either. It's a very simple question. How are you going to pay for it? Think about this. If you, God forbid, I hope this doesn't happen because I know it's a bad time for it, but if, God forbid, you need a new roof, maybe your washer or dryer breaks down and you've got to go out and buy a new one. Any big purchase, you have to think about how you're going to pay for it. And if you have to put it on credit, you've got to put it on credit, but you've got to have a plan to finance that and pay it off. If you've got the cash, you've got to decide if this is the worthwhile investment for your household right now. Because they're not playing with their own money, they're playing with taxpayers' money, they just spend money recklessly. We're spending, $5 billion a month just in interest on our debt. If we had an extra $5 billion in this country monthly, do you know how much further we could go? It's crazy how much they're spending, and when they spend more, they seem to have no plan to pay for it. Melissa Lantsman, you heard her asking the questions there in question period. She, too, spoke to the media outside the House of Commons. I'm going to play 2 quick clips, and then I'm going to move on. Here's Melissa.
Are you concerned about more MPs crossing the floor to the Liberals? Do you think his latest leadership vote will do anything to quell those concerns?
Look, I think more than 87% is a resounding vote from our party membership, despite everything in the media that's tried to sow discord within our party comes out stronger and more united with a message of hope that we are not going to give up on the 8 million Canadians that voted for us to be here. We're not going to give up on the young families that need to afford food and a home. We're not going to give up on seniors who have worked their entire lives and are lining up at food banks. We're not going to give up on the victims of crime when repeat violent offenders are churned out on the streets every single day. That's what that convention taught us. And certainly I know that there are lots of Conservatives, lots in the Conservative Party membership, and lots of Canadians who voted for us who expect us today in this House of Commons and every day after to fight for what they brought us here for. Thank you very much.
I mean, what is with that question? Again, with the floor crossers, it's like the media is begging more Conservatives to cross the floor. By the way, Mark Carney now further away from a majority government. He has now lost Bill Blair. Bill Blair, who is a former cabinet minister, embroiled in numerous scandals, and I've observed looking a little questionable at certain media appearances that he did. He has now been appointed High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. That's one of the best gigs in politics. High Commissioner to the UK, Ambassador to the United Kingdom. That's what Bill Blair got. If you Google Bill Blair scandal or Bill Blair controversy, you're going to see a number of things, not the least of which is how he was involved in the Freedom Convoy, how he dealt with that. You are going to see how he completely messed up the foreign interference file. You are going to see so many examples. And this guy gets rewarded with a promotion. There's some people speculating Mark Carney just doesn't want him around anymore, and it would be unpopular within the party to fire him, so he just got him out of the country. Same as Chrystia Freeland. Got her over to Ukraine. Now Bill Blair is going over to the UK. They're out of his hair. But these are very plum positions that pay very, very well, these ambassadorships. And frankly, I don't know that we're putting our best people in those roles. But I'll leave it up to the discretion of the Prime Minister, who, of course, can make those decisions. One more for Melissa Lantsman. This, again, is her talking to the media. This on the topic of Alberta separation.
Do you know if it's acceptable for Albertans to be going and lobbying the Trump administration to try to separate from Canada?
Look, certainly I'm an MP from Ontario in a party that wants to fight for united Canada, one that is resilient, one that wants to stand, one that can stand on its own 2 feet, one that develops our resources, that treats provincial autonomy with respect. I certainly understand the feelings of those, but I don't think anybody should be lobbying anybody on separation. I think we should fight here for united Canada, and that's not what the Liberals are doing. It is up to the Prime Minister to make the argument on separation, and we didn't have this before he was here. For many, many years, we didn't have separation movements coming out of the woodwork. Certainly not when Prime Minister Harper was here, and we expect the Prime Minister to make the argument about why Canada should be resilient and why Canada should be sovereign, and we haven't heard that.
Great words there from Melissa Lantsman. I appreciate the fact that the Conservatives have taken this approach, acknowledging that there are legitimate concerns in Alberta and in Quebec. You have to acknowledge that they've got a point, but telling them we don't want you to separate. I don't know, though, if I agree with this main talking point that they shouldn't be talking to anyone else. I don't know that it's necessarily that bad. And I'm just spitballing here. I haven't fully formed this idea, but the separatists in Alberta, or those who are pushing for the sovereignty movement, seems to be a big issue that they went and talked to the Trump administration. Should the Trump administration have talked to them? I don't know that they shouldn't have. They were approached. It wasn't the other way around. Now, if they went out trying to find the Alberta separatist movement, that would be a little bit different. That's them trying to interfere in our politics. But if a representative from Alberta went to talk to them and simply wanted to know what that deal would look like if Alberta separated and how they could coexist with the Americans, whether the Americans would be friendly, whether they'd be an ally, whether there could be any funding there, I don't think it's a terrible idea to know what the options are. If I'm thinking about leaving somewhere, I've got to figure out where I'm going. And maybe they're going nowhere. Maybe they'll just be sovereign and there'll be a country right between Canada and the USA. Maybe. But I have a feeling they're going to want to join a bigger fish. Which fish? Well, the Americans makes a lot of sense. If people in Alberta are going to be expected to vote on whether or not they would like to be sovereign from Canada, I think it's perfectly reasonable for them to understand what they're voting for and what the alternative. Apologies, a clip got away from me there. Anyway, my point is, I think it makes sense for them to know what the alternative is. Calling them traitors, calling them names, I personally don't think that's worthwhile, but you guys do you. I'm not 100% convinced that the Liberals fully understand yet that this is a national crisis. Let's play a little bit of Jeff Rath. He is from the Alberta Independence Petition project. He is one of the people who met with senior U.S. officials.
Well, first of all, let's be really clear. I mean, Alberta can completely fund itself without any help from the United States. We've already done a feasibility study on that. It's called The Value of Freedom, a draft fiscal plan for an independent Alberta. We send $70 billion a year to Ottawa. We get less than $10 billion a year back in federal transfers, and we get $10 billion in questionable federal services, including national defense, which we know isn't really any defense at all. So we can completely fund ourselves as a free and independent country. The only thing we're doing is conducting a feasibility study on putting in place a credit line to ease us through the transition of cutting off all federal tax dollars going to Ottawa from Alberta and keeping all of the money here in Alberta. I mean, we're very serious people. We're treating this as a very serious project. We're doing our due diligence on behalf of the citizens of Alberta. We are looking forward to the day where we leave Canada and we will be paying no more federal income tax, no more GST, no more carbon tax, and that Alberta will be the lowest taxed, lowest regulated jurisdiction in North America. So that's what we're working forward to. There's obviously, billions of dollars worth of reasons for Alberta to leave Canada, and nobody has ever been able to provide us a single reason that Alberta would be better off if we remained in Canada. And, I put that challenge out to Danielle Smith, I put it out to Mark Carney, I put it out to every provincial premier. Please tell us why Albertans will be so much better off financially if we stay in Canada, when the day we leave, we no longer have to pay federal income tax or any other federal taxes, and will no longer be, subject to federal regulation of our oil and gas industry.
That was Jeff Rath on the CTV News Channel. Wow, imagine that. Maybe other provinces should know. I'm not going down that road, but how good does that sound? No more paying half your check to the government. No more carbon taxes. No more GST. None of it. That's what Albertans are going to be voting on when they get a chance to vote. And I'm not exactly sure what status they're at. I believe they're still collecting signatures. Once they get enough, then there will be a referendum in Alberta. Let me move on here. Yesterday, we got an interesting comment on the auto sector. Melanie Joly is the Minister of Industry. She said something very, very strange about General Motors.
I've been in contact with Unifor, their union. I've been in contact with GM itself. And that is also why we're getting our money back from GM. And that's also why we've restricted the access to the Canadian market to GM. Mr. Speaker, we will invest in those who invest in us.
Are we getting our money back from General Motors, and are they feeling like they got conned, or are they feeling stupid for bailing out a company that just turned around and went to the U.S.? I don't know. And what do you mean we're restricting GM's access in Canada? I mean, they still operate in Canada. I know they closed down a shift, but they're still operating and building in Canada, and I don't want to see anybody else lose their job. Wow, I got a lot of clips getting away from me today. Sorry about that, friends. Yeah, I just don't fully understand the strategy there or what's going on, but that was Melanie Joly, and she has promised us that we will have a brand new auto strategy coming soon. So I guess we'll wait for that. Yesterday in the House of Commons committee meeting, we had Conservative MP Layla Goodrich talking about housing, and she was talking to Anna Bailau, the CEO of Build Canada Homes. Let's find out how Canada's home building efforts are going. Keep in mind, the Prime Minister promised we were going to build 500,000 new homes a year, and the province said they would build even more. Well, where are we at?
Thank you. So how many of these units that you guys have done are move-in ready?
So 9 of the homes in Nunavut are moving ready. We just got the notice very soon, and all these units will have shovels in the ground in 2026. And as you know, it takes some time to build the units, and we're still waiting for the money from this budget bill.
So the first Canadian housing bureaucracy, CMHC, says that we need to build 500,000 housing units a year. And you said we've built 9. That's a long ways off 500,000.
We're at 9 out of 500,000. 9. And they're not even built yet. Still waiting for money and things like that. 9. There are 9 families in Nunavut that are going to have a move-in ready shack at some point this year. Great news. Great news. Oh my God. When you think about all the promises and all those grand announcements that have gotten made over the last year, and then you hear actual testimony. We've built 9 of them, and they're in Nunavut. I just don't understand how we're supposed to take these people seriously. Yesterday, I thought this was a nice moment that happened in Ottawa. Prime Minister Harper was in Ottawa, marking 20 years since his election as Prime Minister of Canada. There's the unveiling of his official portrait in the House of Commons as a past Prime Minister, and there was a little ceremony that they did beforehand and a Q&A. Prime Minister Harper was joined by former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. And the two of them, they've always had a good relationship, and I love it. I know that we talk sometimes about working across party lines, and you know, just because they're your opponent doesn't mean they're your enemy. And while the sentiment is nice, you don't often see that practiced because our politics is so divisive. But when you've got 2 former prime ministers, Chrétien is a liberal, Harper is a conservative, sitting on the same stage, answering questions, and just discussing general things that are affecting our country. I think that's worth listening to. I'm going to play just a little bit of Stephen Harper and Jean Chrétien's Q&A yesterday.
At this moment, our friend from the South has created a mood that a Canadian have never been so proud to be Canadian. You know, in my province of Quebec, it's still the same thing today. You know, the desire to have a referendum is very low in Quebec. Don't know what the hell is going on in Alberta. But I have to go there. I have 500 cousins.
I didn't sign the petition.
Any Tories did?
I'm told
I want an
not.
answer.
I'm told not.
Anyway, we're having fun. Canada will remain united, don't worry.
Okay, yeah, that's nice. Nice sentiment. Canada will remain united, and a couple shots at the Americans there, and they came from Stephen Harper and Jean Chrétien. It was nice. It was nice to see the two of them talking. You know what I didn't hear from them, though? I heard hyperbole, and I heard platitudes like Canada will remain united, and we're a united Canada. And sure, there's a lot of people, mainly boomers, that feel that way. But there's a very disenfranchised youth movement here in Canada that certainly does not feel that way, that understand what's in front of us right now. And what's in front of us is the need to build a pipeline and start getting our products out to market. I didn't hear either of them call for building a pipeline. Here's a little bit more of the exchange with Stephen Harper and Jean Chrétien yesterday.
But I would say that if I can, I gotta dig in here. I'd just say that the American Revolution and War of 1812 are probably better examples of Canadian unity than the Plains of Abraham. So.
That a shot at Prime Minister Carney, who decided to deliver a Canadian unity speech in Quebec on the Plains of Abraham. Not very well thought through, many people would argue. One more. You know what? I just got a few more minutes left here. Prime Minister Harper and Prime Minister Chrétien. This is a nice throwback. You know, back when we had these guys in charge, if you were a conservative, I think by and large, you generally, even if you disagreed with the policy, you could at least respect our Liberal Prime Minister. And there's a lot of Liberals, not as many, though, but there's a lot of Liberals who can look back with hindsight and appreciate that we had things pretty damn good under Stephen Harper, a conservative prime minister. I like that their legacy is still important, that people are still interested in what they have to say. I don't know how relevant it is to today's topics, especially because they're both in an aging demo, but nonetheless, we should give them the time when they come out and speak, particularly when they do it together. This is on the Clarity Act and what it's going to take for separation in Canada. Jean Chrétien was the one who introduced the Clarity Act in the event that there was a province that wanted to leave our union.
No, I guess you voted for the Clarity Act, don't you?
I did. I not only did, I put the first draft. You talked to me about it. I put the first draft of it in Parliament.
I voted. Show a bit of humility. No, but on that, you know, he was in the opposition. And he supported me, you know, and there was some problem with that, probably for him, not for me, I'm very sure. But it is something that nobody remembered. Now nobody talks about it. You know, if you read it, it's not only a vote. The question has to be approved by Parliament of Canada. And if you want to separate, there is a series of steps that you have followed that are very complicated. So don't think that because one night there will be a vote, there will be a vote to go. There's a lot of steps that have to be followed before this thing happens. And it is because we decided that at that time. Why? Because some people were claiming that with one vote we will lose Canada. Remember that? I remember, I said, that makes no sense. You know, one of my friends in Shorian would forget his glasses home, and I would not be a Canadian the day after, because he would have voted. And those who were telling that one vote was enough, I used to make the joke that, you know, the NDP, I don't want to talk politics, it's a reality. Their name is an illegal name. They call themselves the New Democratic Party since 70 years. So it's not new at all. So it's false advertising. And they wanted to change their name one day at their annual meeting, and they failed. You know why? Because they didn't have 2/3 of the vote. So they were willing to let go the country for one vote and not get another name than any other name. They needed 2/3 of the vote. Just, relax. Canada is there for a long time.
Again, assuring Canadians, don't worry about it. I think Canadians should be extremely worried about it. And by the way, the Clarity Act, I'm not sure if it's going to be relevant in this case. I really don't. If Alberta has a well-run and democratically selected process that unfolds in a way that the vote comes out, that the majority of Albertans want to secede from Canada, I really don't know that the Federal Clarity Act is going to really be in effect here. I just don't see it going down that way. I'm going to wrap it up here, but before I do, just a couple of quick clips from President Trump. Yesterday, he was talking to the media in the Oval Office about a number of topics, and he had a few doozies. Listen to this.
Mr. President, are you going to sue Trevor Noah? Last night in a post, you alluded that something could be coming.
Yeah, well, he said that I spent time on Jeffrey Epstein's island. I didn't. I mean, he's a lightweight. This guy. He's a terrible. I think he's terrible. I thought he did a terrible job at the Grammys. I thought the whole Grammys was terrible. I watched part of it. It's not watchable. But he was a lousy host. I'd say not as bad as Jimmy Kimmel, but pretty close. And no, he made a statement about me and Jeffrey Epstein. I have nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, if you look at the DOJ, they announced, they released 3 million pages. It's like this is all they're supposed to be doing. And frankly, the DOJ, I think, should just say, we have other things to do, because that whole thing has turned out, other than Bill Clinton and, Bill Gates and lots of people there are a lot of questions about it, but nothing on me.
That is partially true. I wouldn't say there's nothing on him. There's certainly a lot of people that would like to tie Donald Trump to the Epstein saga, but I don't know if it's going to work because what I've learned from the Epstein files so far is Epstein himself said they hadn't had any luck getting Trump to participate. But it is seeming more and more like this was set up purely to exploit people. They would bring him in, catch him doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and there were cameras everywhere. And then once they had him on tape having an affair or doing horrible things, then they could blackmail them and have that politician or world leader or whomever follow their lead, do what they're told to do. There's also indications coming out of the Epstein files that were released that Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates were discussing pandemic scenarios back in 2017. And there's some very interesting stuff that if you read through the chain of emails between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein about pandemics, just Google it and you'll see it. Really starting to seem like COVID wasn't the accident they led us to believe it was. There was also, coming out of the Epstein files, there's so much. The serious implications for people like Bill Clinton, possibly Hillary Clinton. The update there is they've now agreed to give congressional testimony. They'd been subpoenaed. They didn't want to do it. And now, under threat of being prosecuted criminally, they've agreed that they're going to speak to a congressional committee about what they know about Jeffrey Epstein. And by the way, I'm led to believe they know everything there is to know about Jeffrey Epstein. So that is going to be very, very interesting. As soon as that happens, I'm going to have complete coverage right here on Scott Fox After 9. One more from the president yesterday. I think generally speaking, we Canadians, we like Cuba, right? Cuba's great. Like going down there for a nice cheap vacation in the winter. Well, the Americans are kind of interested in getting rid of that communist government in Cuba. It seems, anyway.
It's a failed nation now, and they're not getting any money from Venezuela, and they're not getting any money from anywhere. It's a failed nation. Mexico is going to cease sending them oil. So I'd like to take care of the people that are here from Cuba. You know, we have many people that came from Cuba that were thrown out of Cuba or that fled Cuba. They came over on rafts. They went through shark-infested waters. I don't know how they did it. And it was many years ago. Many would like to go back. Many would like to at least visit their relatives. And I think we're at a pretty close point. We are dealing with the Cuban leaders right now.
I'm wondering what the Americans' plan for Cuba is. Do they want to turn it into a fully functioning democracy and restore diplomatic relations and empower the people to start doing all the things that a new democracy would do? Hold free and fair elections, open up businesses, put some basic infrastructure in place that doesn't exist right now in Cuba? Is that the plan? Or is it just to overthrow the communist government and leave it to the Cuban people to figure out? I think that there's got to be free and fair elections, and it's got to happen quick. And I mean in Venezuela, and I mean in Cuba, if it goes down that way. I've heard some stuff here, friends, lately. There's a couple things going on that I've heard about. This could be a very interesting couple of weeks coming up on the markets in particularly if the president goes in and does something militarily to Iran. And there's reason to think he is. He's got a big naval presence built up not too far from Iran. And if that happens, there's a lot of people who think that's going to have a massive, profound impact on the markets. Buckle up. It's going to be an interesting few days. You've got the Clintons testifying on the Epstein file to Congress. Looks like Trump is ready to go into Iran. The Cuban government may fall. And what's going to happen here in Canada? Well, all of that is going to unfold every single day right here in Scott Fox After 9. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. If you enjoyed what you heard today, by all means, tell a friend. Let's continue building this audience, which seems to grow every single day. That makes me so happy and proud, but I know we can do better. So spread the word, and this is your place every single day where you're going to get fairly as unbiased as I can do it. I do have a bias. I'm a conservative, but I try and look at things right down the middle, and I try and look at things through the lens of the middle class. Help me get the word out, spread the word, and thank you for listening to this episode. I'm going to leave you today with the sounds of Pat James and the whole truth. Hey now.